Welcome to the session of Animal Kingdom NCRT exercise part 2. In this section, we are going to cover up the questions from the section 4.1 and 4.2 from our NCRT book. Disclaimer: the images, text, and other materials used in our presentations are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and owners. If you are the owner and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathi@iitk.ac.in and we shall remove the content immediately. Please note that the parts of the content may have been generated using generative AI, which is totally experimental. So today's session learning objective, we will explore and understand the fundamental concept of a chapter Animal Kingdom by working through the NCRT exercise question, right? So today's index, we will have multiple choice questions, two multiple choice question, 13 and 14. And then we will have the subjective questions, okay? And there will be one match the column type of question. So without any wasting time, let us have our question. All vertebrates are chordates, but all chordates are not vertebrates. Justify the statement. This is a very, very important to understand that why all vertebrates are considered as a chordates, but all chordates are not considered as a vertebrate. So this was our question. Let us see the answer of this question. Phylum Chordata is a broader group that includes vertebrate, which have the vertebral column, right? So all this vertebrates are included in the phylum Chordata. We are having different vertebrates animal. We have read about the four different classes, right? We have read about the species, then amphibia, then reptiles, aves, mammals, all are included in the vertebrate. So that comes under the phylum Chordata, right? Now, chordates are defined by the following characteristics. Let us first of all understand what are chordates. Okay. So the chordates are the organism that are having the following characteristics. What are the characteristics? Number one, having notochord. Notochord is very, very important. Notochord. Second, dorsal hollow nerve cord. There is a nerve cord, but that is hollow. This hollow term is very important. Sometimes it has been asked that in the statement wise question, it is given that solid nerve cord. So that statement become incorrect, right? So you have to keep this in mind that the nerve cord is hollow. And what is the position? Dorsal. The position is dorsal, not the ventral. Your chest is in the ventral position, but your backbone, your vertebral column is in the dorsal position, right? So this dorsal hollow nerve cord is there. Pharyngeal gill slits. Pharyngeal gill slits. In the region of pharynx, there are slits. Okay, that is called as pharyngeal gill slit. Post anal tail, at some point in their development, there is always a tail that start from the post anal part. There is an anal aperture, and from there only the tail originate. So these are the characteristics of the chordate, right? But all vertebrate possesses these chordate characteristics and have additional vertebral column. And this vertebral column, it get replaced by the notochord. The notochord got replaced by the vertebral column in the case of vertebrates. Other chordates like tunicates and lancelets only have a notochord. They are having only notochord. So this makes the vertebrates a subset of a larger chordata group. It is a subset. It is a subset of a larger chordata group. So that is why we can say that all vertebrates are chordates, but all chordates are not vertebrates. Okay, so this is the final justification of this question. Now here you can see the chordata characteristic which I have mentioned here in the blue line. You can see here there is a nerve cord, nerve cord, and you can see that this is the hollow. This is the hollow from inside, nerve cord. There is also the notochord, and they are having the gill slits. This is the alimentary canal. Okay, this is the alimentary canal, and there is a mouth, and at the end here you can see there is the anus. Two openings are there in the alimentary canal. One is the mouth and one is the anus. From the mouth they can take the food, and from the anal part they can discharge the undigested food. Now here you can see post-anal tail. After the anal opening there is a post-anal part. That is the post-anal tail, right? So these are the features of the chordata. So all vertebrates possesses all these chordata characteristics. Along with that, they are having the vertebral column. And this vertebral column is not found in all chordates. They are not found in all chordates. This vertebral column is found in the classes of species, class of amphibia, class of reptiles, class of aves, means birds, and class of mammals. So these 5 classes get differentiated from the other chordates. Okay. Now let's move to our next question. Next question is, how important is the presence of air bladder in species? Very, very important point. How this air bladder is important in species, right? This question is adapted from the section 4.2 of our NCERT. So let us see the answer of this question. This was our question. And let us see the answer. The air bladder, also known as swim bladder, is crucial for bony fishes. It is crucial for the bony fishes. Now, bony fishes is also known as osteichthyes. What is the meaning of osteoch? Osteoch means bones. Okay. So, bony fishes. That is why it is called as bony fishes, right? So, air bladder is found in which type of fishes? Bony fishes, also known as osteichthyes, right? It is absent in cartilaginous fishes. Very, very important point. It is not found in cartilaginous fishes. Now, cartilaginous fishes is known as chondrichthyes. What is the difference between the bony fishes and cartilaginous fishes? Endoskeleton is made up of bones in the case of bony fishes, and the endoskeleton is made up of cartilage in the cartilaginous fishes. I hope you all know what is cartilage. Okay, you can touch your ear, pinna, external ear. That is made up of cartilage. You can also touch your point, nose tip. That is also made up of cartilage. And at the end of every bone, we are having the cartilage so that our bones do not get rubbed with another bone, right? So cartilage is that thing. So it is absent in cartilaginous fishes. What thing is absent? This air bladder or swim bladder. Air bladder or swim bladder is absent. Air bladder is important in species because why it is important? Why it is important, right? Let us see that. It regulates buoyancy. Because it regulates the buoyancy. See, this air bladder or swim bladder get filled with some gases or air, and it makes their body lighter. So that they can swim on the surface of water. So how they swim? Because there is a buoyancy, upward force is there, right? So that is called as buoyancy. Allow fish to control their depth in water column. The fish can control their depth, at which depth they have to go, right? So they can control their depth movement in the water column, whether they are in the ocean, whether they are in the sea or the river, right? They can they can maintain their depth in the water column, right? Now, a part of buoyancy, the air bladder can also act as a resonating chamber for the sound production and perception. Not only this, see, this air bladder is also working as a resonating chamber because it is filled with the air, right? So, for sound production, it can detect the sound and perception. Perception of what? Perception of any danger, perception of food, right? So this sound, this sound production, whatever the coming from the outside, it can be detected with the help of this air chamber. Okay, air bladder, or you can say the swim bladder. So here in the figure you can see the swim bladder control up and down movement. This also control the up and down movement, and pectoral fin control the side to side movement. So this up and down movement, the fish can move down, then they can goes upward. So this is maintained with the help of swim bladder. So this is very, very important point. And the other important point in this question, that you must remember the cartilaginous fish are not having any air bladder or swim bladder. So what they have to do? What they have to do? They have to continuously swim. If they will not swim, then they can sink. They can sink. And that is why the cartilaginous fish are continuously swimming in the water. Chondrichthyes fish or the cartilaginous fish are continuously, they make swim in the water, right? Let's move to our next question. What are the modifications that are observed in birds that help them to fly? The modification in their body, in the body of the bird that help them to fly. This is again the question coming from the NCERT section 4.2, right? So let us see what are the modifications. So this was our question, right? And let us see what are the different characteristics. So birds have several unique features that help them to fly. Some are as follows. Let us see that. Presence of feathers. They are having feathers, right? So this is the first characteristic that helps them to fly in air. Second, forelimbs are turned into wings to help with flight. They are forelimbs. We are having forelimbs and hind limbs. We are having forelimbs and hind limbs, right? So this forelimbs are modified into wings, and that helps with the flight. Hind limbs have scales. Hind limbs have scales. This is also very important point. Their legs, if you see, they are covered with the scales. And one of the very, very important point, they have pneumatic or hollow bones that lighten the skeleton. That lighten their body. So pneumatic bone, see the spelling, it is from P silent, okay? Pneumatic or hollow bones. The bones are, sorry, the bones are hollow from inside. The bones are hollow from inside. And due to that hollow bones, the body becomes lighter, right? Next point, absence of urinary bladder. Absence of urinary bladder. They are not having any urinary bladder, and that causes net body weight loss and facilitate them to fly. This is again one of the very, very important point, right? Now you can think about urinary bladder is so important that collect the nitrogenous waste material, right? But here the nitrogenous waste material is in the form of pellets. Okay, uric acid, right? Their streamlined body provide less resistance and enable longer flight. The body is streamlined. What does this mean? Have you seen the boat, the shape of any boat or the ship? It is streamlined. In the same way, the shape of the bird is also streamlined, right? Streamlined. And that helps them to, when they are flying in the air, they cut the air current. They cut the air current. And the boat and ship, when move in the water, their streamlined shape cut the water current. So both the type of fluid, water and air, are a type of fluids, right? So this streamlined body cut this air current and keeps on moving in a very faster pace in the air, and they help them to take a longer flight. So here are some figure that you can see. Streamlined body, you can see the body is streamlined, okay, boat shape. And other thing, forelimbs modified into wings, you can see this wings helps them to fly. Wings helps them to fly. Very important point. Another thing, hollow bones inside. Hollow bones, you can see the bones are hollow from inside, right? So it makes their body lighter. And scales on the hind limbs. Scales on the hind limbs. It uh, provide a resistance from this, or you can say the friction from the air, to reduce that friction. So this is again one of the very important point. And in the starting of the flight, and the, like, when they come to the ground or any branches of the tree, at that time this scales on the hind limbs also helpful. Another very important point, their lungs are having air sacs, okay, and they need lot of oxygen. So for the energy purpose, they require more oxygen, and that is done by the air sacs that are present in the lungs. Actually, the lungs are having some more balloon like structure attached with it, that is called as air sac. So that also makes their body lighter. And the other thing that makes their body lighter, that is the absence of urinary bladder. Absence of urinary bladder. So this is a very, very important question. We are having the 5 to 6 points, and with the help of diagram, you can able to understand that how what are the modification that the birds are having that helps them to fly in the air. Okay, let's move to our next question. The next question, could the number of eggs or young ones produced by an oviparous and viviparous mother be equal? Now, one thing you must understand, first of all, what is oviparous and what is viviparous? Oviparous, egg-laying animals, okay, and viviparous, the one that give birth to the young ones. That is the viviparous, right? So you have to give reason also why. There is a question why, right? Question is coming from the, or you can say the adapted from the NCERT section 4.2. Let us see the answer of this question. Could the number of eggs or young ones produced by an oviparous and viviparous mother be equal? This is our question. Let us see the answer. No, the number of eggs or young ones produced by an oviparous and viviparous mother are not equal. Not equal. Why it is not equal? Let us see that answer. First thing, oviparous. Let us talk about the oviparous animal. Oviparous animal typically produce more eggs. They produces more eggs. Why? Because first point, many eggs may not survive due to the predation or environmental factor. Right? They lay eggs. So the eggs are present where? In the open environment. The eggs are not in their body. The eggs are present in the open environment. And there are many predators that can take the eggs. They can take their eggs. Right? There are certain environmental factors that can damage the eggs. Excessive heat, cold, rain, right? So these are the environmental factors that can damage the eggs. Number 1 point. Second, lower parental care per offspring. So this has been seen that the oviparous animals do not take care of their eggs in such a way that you see in the case of the viviparous. Viviparous. You must have heard about that the monkey, the female monkey, even her child die. Even her child die. They keep their child with them. They do not detach it. They take that dead body for many days, many days. So this shows what? This shows the parental care. Parental care. You cannot reach to the female dog which is having some puppies. She will growl on you. She can have an attack on you because she take care of her parents. But such things are not seen in the case of this oviparous animals. Okay, there is a parental care, but not as we see in the case of viviparous, right? So this point comes here: lower parental care per offspring. Third point: external development means higher risk. Yes, if the development of the young one is taking in the external environment, there is a higher risk of that they could get damaged. The egg can damage. The young one which is developing inside the egg, that can get damaged. Right? So these are the things that we see in the case of oviparous animal. And that is why oviparous animal lay more eggs. They lay more eggs. Right? Now, let us see what happens in the case of viviparous animal. Viviparous animal produce fewer offspring. Fewer offspring. Fewer means less offspring. You can see the figure also. Less offspring because internal development provide better protection. Okay? The baby is developing inside the mother womb. So there is a protection. There is no there is the factors, that is environmental factor that could damage, that is not there. That is not there. Right? So the development is inside the mother womb. So it is having a better protection. Second point, higher parental care per offspring. Higher parental care. I have given the examples of monkey, the female dog, right? Even in the cats, and even in the cow. You cannot touch the calf of the cow. She can attack on you, right? So why this is happening? Because they take care of their young ones. Higher parental care is seen in the case of viviparous animals. Third point, better survival chances for the young ones. There is a better because they are giving birth to the young ones. Okay. So the young one is already developed. It is developed inside the mother womb. So when it comes out, it is already developed. Now it has to just grow. But in the case of oviparous animals, the development is taking in the outer environment. So there is a higher risk of the environmental factor and other predators. Okay. So this is very, very important question. And I hope with this explanation, you are able to understand it. Okay. Let us move to our next question. Segmentation in the body is first observed in which of the following? So, this is the MCQs based question. Segmentation in the body is first observed in which of the following? Let us see the options. A. Platyhelminthes. B. Eskelminthes. C. Annelida. And D. Arthropoda. Question is coming from the NCERT section 4.2. So let us see the answer of this question. It's a very simple answer. The correct answer is option C, Annelida. Yes. The segmentation is a very, very important characteristic of the phylum. But let us understand what are the other important things related to the segmentation. So key characteristic of segmental organization in annelids. True segmentation. What is true segmentation? True segmentation is also called as metameric segmentation. That first time appears in the case of annelids. Metameric segment. True segment. Okay. These 2 points you must remember. True segmentation is also called as metameric segmentation. Now, what is metameric segmentation? Let us understand that. Body is divided into similar segments. All the segments are of the same size, externally as well as internally. The segmentation demarcation you can see on the body. And that demarcation is not only from the externally, that demarcation can be seen from internally also. So if the organism is having such a type of segmentation, then it is called as true segmentation or metameric segment. Clear it is, right? Very important. True segmentation, metameric segmentation. It means that the segmentation that is having a demarcation or it is divisible from external as well as from internal side. One more important thing in the metameric segmentation. Let us see that. Segment contains repetition of certain organ. There is a repetition of organs in the same size of segmentation. These 2 points are very, very important in the case of true segmentation or metameric segmentation. Metameric segmentation. Examples. It includes earthworms. Leeches, and marine polychaetes. So here you can see a figure that is showing the similar type of segments, right? So this demarcation you can see, annulus it is called, and from the annulus, this annelida, the term annelida came. That is the ring-like segment. Okay, you can see the ring-like segment. And this segment, you can see the demarcation of the segmentation from external. And when you cut the organism, you will see the same demarcation present from the inside also, right? And there is a repetition of a certain organ. Can you name any what organ is repeated? That is the excretory organ called as nephridia. For example, I'm giving you one example that repetition of certain organ. So one organ you can remember that is the nephridia. And that is called as septal nephridia because this segment is actually called as septa. So in every septa there is a one this nephridia. So that nephridia is called as septal nephridia. Moving to our next question. So this is the match the column type of question. Column 1 and column 2. In the column 1, you can see what are the items are given. A. Operculum. B. Parapodia. C. Scales. D. Comb plates. E. Radula. F. Hairs. G. Coinocytes. And H. Gill slits. The column 2, we can see first Ctenophora. Second Mollusca. Third Porifera. Fourth Reptilia. Fifth Annelida. Sixth, cyclostomata or chondrichthyes. Seventh, mammalia. And eighth, osteo. Let us see the answer of this question. So this is the answer. Operculum. Operculum is what? Operculum is a covering of the gill slits. Okay, in the osteichthyes fish. Osteichthyes fish means bony fishes. Bony fishes. For example, rohu, right? They are having the operculum or the gill covering. So the operculum is matched with the osteichthyes gill covering. Parapodia. Parapodia, locomotory organ in the case of one of the annelids. One of the annelids, that is Nares. In the case of Nares, we see the locomotory organ as a parapodia. So parapodia is matched with the fifth annelida. Scales. Scales and scutes are the outer covering that we see in the case of reptiles. The case of reptiles. So scales is matched with the reptiles. We have discussed about the reptilia class. We have seen that the skin of the crocodile, the skin of the this alligator, chameleon, all are having the scales or the scutes on their body surfaces. Rough and dry scales. So that is matched with the reptilia. Comb plates. Comb plates is again locomotory organ in the case of Ctenophora. Ctenophora phylum. Pleurobrachia, one of the example of this Ctenophora. So they are having the comb plates. Radula. Radula, very, very important point. Radula. That is the rasping organ in the case of mollusca. Help in the feeding, right? Hairs. Hairs is present on the body of mammalians. You have seen monkey. Body is covered with the hairs. Cats, dogs, cow, human. Okay, so many examples. You see the hairs that are present on mammalian body. Coinocytes. Coinocytes is a very, very important cell that we see only in the case of Porifera. That is the unique characteristic of that particular phylum, Porifera. Coinocytes. And that is also called as collar cells. Collar cells. They are having the flagella. They are having the flagella that beats the flagella and makes the water current in the spongiocele cavity. We will see. We will see in the coming slide. Gill slits. Gill slits. That we see in the case of cyclostomata and chondrichthyes. Right? So here you can see operculum. Operculum is a hard bony flap that covers and protect the gills in bony fishes. Operculum is a hard bony flap that covers and protect the gills in the bony fishes. We have talked about this operculum, right? So bony fishes, that is the osteichthyes. Parapodia, a lateral appendages used for the locomotion in the segmented worm. Segmented worm. One of the example is the Nares. You can see here in the figure. Parapodia in Nares. This is the Nares, and you can see they are having the locomotory organ parapodia attached to the each segment on both the side. A pair of parapodia is attached to the segment, right? So this is in the case of Nares. Now see the operculum. The first one, operculum, is present in the fish. This is the gill covering, operculum, that we see in the case of bony fishes or osteichthyes. Scales. Scales are the characteristic feature of the reptilian skin. So here you can see the scales in the case of snakes. Comb plates. Comb plates are the distinctive locomotory structure in the comb jellies. Comb jellies are the example, right? Common example. And here you can see this green color, 8 rows. That is called as comb plates. They are having the flagella, okay? Flagella or cilia that helps in the locomotion. So this is comb plate we see in the Pleurobrachia that belongs to the phylum Ctenophora. Yes. Now we will talk about the other four matching items. The first one is the radula here. Radula is a ribbon-like structure with teeth used in the feeding in mollusks. So let us see the figure. Here you can see radula in mollusca. You can see this is the radula. You can see the dark color here. This is the rasping organ. Rasping organ is something like that. You scratch. You scratch on your food material. Okay. So that foil-like things is called radula. Okay. Ribbon-like structure with teeth used for feeding in mollusca. Very, very important. Hairs provide insulation in mammals. You can see the hairs are covered on the skin. They covered the skin, right? These hairs. So they are helping in insulation. Insulation, the case of mammals. Sorry. Coinocytes, also called as collar cells, are the characteristic feeding cells in the sponges. You can see this is the collar cell. This is the spongocele cavity. This cavity is called as the spongocele. And the inner lining of the spongocele cavity is by the coinocyte cells, right? So these coinocyte cells in the case of porifera, what they do, they beat. They are having flagella. They beat in the spongocele cavity because there is a water. And when there is a beating of flagella in the water, it produces water current. So there is a continuous movement of water from the ostia. You can see this arrow. There is an ostia. It makes the water to move inside this. So from here, water comes out. But when water comes in, it brings about food material, oxygen dissolved in water, right? So that is taken by this coinocytes or the collar cells. Gill slits are the respiratory opening found in the jawless fishes and the cartilaginous fishes. So here you can see these are the gill slits. Okay, gill slits that are respiratory opening found in the jawless fishes or in the case of cartilage. Next question. Prepare a list of some animals that are found as a parasitic on human being, as a parasite on human beings. So this question is again based on NCERT section 4.2. So this was our question. Let us see the answer. Some animals that are found as a parasitic in humans are as follows. First one, ankylostoma. Ankylostoma, also known as hookworm. Hookworm causes intestinal hookworm disease. Intestinal hookworm disease, right? Ankylostoma causes disease in the human being, right? This is very, very important. And commonly it is called as hookworm. You have to remember this, right? Okay. Next one is the Taenia solium. Taenia solium. That is also called as tapeworm. Tapeworm. Yes. And that causes Teniasis disease. That causes Teniasis disease. I hope you all know that this tapeworm is present in the pork. What is pork? Pork is the meat of pig. And if the this meat of pig is not cooked properly. So this this tinea solium could be present in that flesh, right? Contaminated. Yes, contaminated. And that you eat. So if a small proglotid, or you can say the small segment of tapeworm is there, na, it can divide and redivide in your body and it can make whole worm, right? So it is having the two, you can say two hosts. One is the pig and one is the human. So this tinea solium completes its life cycle in the two organism. One is the pig and another is the human. So tinea solium, that is commonly called as tapeworm, causes disease teniasis. You have to remember this. Next, enterobius pinworm, that causes itching at anal opening. Okay, at the anal opening, sometime this causes itching because the pinworm start eating the tissues at the anal opening. Wuchereria. This is also called as filarial worm that causes filariasis or elephantiasis disease. So this Wuchereria, when comes in the human body, it get enter inside the muscles. They increase their number. Okay, in the muscles they increase their number, and the muscles get swelled up. There's a lot of inflammation, and the egg the legs, you can see it becomes very heavy, and that is why it seems like it is a leg of elephant, and that is why it is called as commonly elephantiasis, right? Filariasis or elephantiasis. Ascaris, very, very common worm, round worm that causes ascariasis. Sometimes what happens, small children, they eat mud. Okay, they are not knowing about that this mud is healthy or not. So their eggs of this ascaris could present in the that soil or the mud that child are eating, small children's, right? So that egg can get enter inside their stomach, it hatch out there and then goes to the intestine, and there this worm can grow. The worm can grow, and if they are having both the type of sexes, male and female, then they can reproduce even. Sometime their number increases such that there is a clog in the intestine. The intestine get clogged. The food cannot move forward, right? So this is a very, very dangerous condition, and that is called as ascariasis. Sometimes this ascariasis, the small worm, that can reach to the circulatory system as well, right? So here are some figure you can see. This is the ankylostoma, or you can say the hookworm. You can see at this particular point there are some hook. With their with the help of this hook, it get attached to the tissues, right? Hookworm in the intestine. They get attached in the intestine. Tapeworm, you can see the tapeworm. It is so long structure. You can see this is one of the segment that is called as proglottid. Okay, this is the segment of the tapeworm that is called as proglottid. And you can see this is the head region. The head region, there is a hook, and these are the suckers from which they can suck the food, right? Enterobius pinworm that causes itching at the anal opening. Wuchereria, you can see this Wuchereria that causes elephantiasis or filariasis. Commonly, it is called as filaria worm. And Ascaris, round worm. You can see the female is quite longer, and the male is smaller. And at one of the end, it got coiled because it is having this anal serae structure, that is the reproductive organ of this Ascaris. Okay, so these are the some of the worms that causes disease in the human being, and they are parasites. Moving to our next question. Water vascular system is the characteristic of which group of the phylum? Water vascular system. A. Porifera, B. Ctenophora, C. Echinodermata, and D. Chordata. This question is again coming from the section 4.2. Let us see the answer of this question. Water vascular system is the characteristic of which group of the following? Okay, this was our question. Let us see the answer. Correct option is option C, Echinodermata. So let us see the characteristic of this. Water vascular system is the unique and defining characteristic of phylum Echinodermata. It is one of the defining characteristic. This point is very, very important. Defining characteristic of phylum Echinodermata, because this water vascular system is found only in the case of Echinodermata. It is not present in any other phylum. Don't get confused with the Porifera. Porifera is not having water vascular system. It is having water canal system. Water canal system. So be specific with that. Water vascular system, Echinodermata, water canal system, Porifera. Okay? This is the defining characteristic of phylum Echinodermata. Next point. Water vascular system consists of. Now let us see what this system consists of. A network of fluid filled canals. They are having the long canals. So that canal get filled with the fluid. Fluid means water. Tube fit podia used for the locomotion, because this tube is working as a feet, or you can say the podia, locomotory organ. So this tube fit used for the locomotion, feeding and respiration. How it is working as a feeding? We are talking about the locomotory organ, how it is working as a feeding. Because when from this tube feed water get enter inside the water vascular system, along with the water, small microorganisms, the food material get enter inside the water vascular system. And these foods are get captured inside the body. These foods get captured inside the body. So in that way, they are helping in the process of feeding. Not only with that, the food, this water is dissolved with oxygen. There is a lot of oxygen dissolved in water. So that dissolved oxygen is also getting enter inside the water vascular. So that oxygen is also taken by the organism inner cells, inner body cells. So they are helping in the process of respiration. Okay. One more important thing, excretion. Whatever the waste material that develops inside the organism, Echinodermata, for example, starfish, that waste material is withdrawn in this water only. And when the water comes out from its body, all the waste material is eliminated out from it, right? So it is, this tube fit is helping in the process of locomotion, feeding, respiration, and excretion. So remember this water vascular system. This is very, very important point, and the phylum also. And this is the, again I'm telling you, unique and defining characteristic of the phylum. Madreporite sieve plates that regulate the water intake. Actually, this is you can say an organ that is attached to its surface that takes up the water and keep on allowing the water to move inside the tube. Okay. So this is the an organ that regulate the water intake, madreporite. Functions of water vascular system. So let us see what is the function of this water vascular system. Locomotion through the extension and retraction of the tube feed. So when the water get enter inside this tube feed, there is an extension, and then water comes out, there is a retraction. So extension, retraction makes the starfish move forward. So it is helping in the process of locomotion. Food capture, we have already discussed. When the water get enter inside the organism, the food is there, they get captured. Gas exchange and the respiration. Along with the water, the gases exchange is there because oxygen is dissolved in water, and that is available for the process of respiration. And one more point I have told you regarding the excretion, it is also helping in the process of excretion. Next question. What are the reasons that you think of for the arthropods to constitute the largest group of the animal kingdom? Arthropod, we all know that is the largest group of the animal kingdom. Why? The question is why? Reason you have to tell. Okay. NCERT section 4.2. The question is coming from this section. Let us see the answer of this question. This was our question. So they constitute 2/3 of all kingdom, all animals. Yes, very, very important. Following are the key reason why arthropods are the largest group in the animal kingdom. Let us see one by one the reasons. The first one, high reproductive rate. Their rate of reproduction is very high. This is one of the reasons. Produce many offspring at once because they lay eggs in large number. They lay eggs in a large number. So they produce more offspring. Short breeding cycle, and their breeding cycle is very short. So next time also that female can lay more eggs in the same season because their breeding cycle is very, very small, right? So this is very important. Reproduce multiple times in their lifetime. It can reproduce multiple times. So that is why it is very important to note down that the arthropodons are having high rate of reproduction, right? And these are the reason for it. Let us see the next point. Quick growth and development. Quick growth and development. They develop very fast. Reach maturity quickly. The young ones, they reach to the maturity very quickly. Short life cycle allow rapid population growth. If the life cycle is short, like they lay eggs, then from the eggs, the larva will come out. If we talk about the arthropodon, then let us take about example of Periplaneta americana, that is cockroach, scientific name, Periplaneta. So their young ones are called as nymph. Their young ones are called as nymph. Now this nymph very quickly changes to the adult. So this is the life cycle, and this life cycle is very, very short, right? So there is a rapid population growth. Can have multiple generations in a year. In a year, they can have multiple generations. Multiple generations. So these are the 2 points you must remember: high reproductive rate, quick growth and development. Let's see other points. Adaptability. Adaptability. Can live in almost every habitat. You can see the arthropods, you can see in the land also, in the water also, in the air also. Right? So they can live almost in every habitat. Found from desert to the polar region. They are found from desert to polar region. Insects you can see in the desert, right? And in the polar region also, you can see arthropods, some or the other. Small size, their size is very small. Their size is very small. Require less food and space. They require less food and space because their body is very small now. So they require less amount of food, less space to live. So anywhere they can live, where there is a less amount of food available, then also they can grow. Can occupy many small niches. What is niche? You all know. Niches are like you live at your home. That is your address. That is your address, your home. At home, whatever the activity you are doing, that is called as your niche. So in a habitat, the organism perform many activities that is called as its niche. So can occupy many small niches in a small habitat, and there they can do their activity. They can reproduce, they can live there, they can gather food material, right? All the activities that are doing there. So their small size is helping in that. Variety of food sources. They can live on variety of food sources. Can eat almost anything. Some are herbivores, carnivores are omnivores. Some of the arthropods are herbivores, some are carnivores, and some are omnivores. So the food is not a problem. They can live anywhere. So these are some of the reasons that they are present in such a large group of animal. Why it is considered as a large group of animal? These are some of the reasons. So this is all about today's session. Thank you very much.